This is a study of Revelation, our 12th lesson, and today we will be looking at chapter 14. Chapter 14 is about the earth. In 13, we saw the political system in the form of the one world government and the religious system in the person of Satan masquerading as the true Christ and sitting in Mount Zion. Number 1, Revelation chapter 14. And it reads, verse 1. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. Now this is the true Christ, the Lamb. The 144,000 is not the elect. These are redeemed ones who have overcome. Ezekiel chapter 44 explains that a little bit more clearly. But these are people who come with him. There are churches that teach that only 144,000 will make it to heaven. This is the number 12 squared. 12 is an important biblical number, and the 144,000, of course, is a symbolic number because we've already seen in earlier chapters that when John was taken to heaven, that he could see the souls that were there worshiping, and there were thousands, more than could even be counted. So the idea that only 144,000 make it is erroneous teaching. Number 2. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And this of course, is the rejoicing at the final arrival of the true Lamb onto Mount Zion. 4. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and behold, the 4 beasts, those are those 4 living beasts created by the Father to guard the throne, and it had the following the 4 guards, tribes that were on the outer boundaries of the encampment. It had their ensign symbol, Reuben and Ephraim and Dan and Judah. It had a lion and a face of a lion, face of a man, face of an ox, and those 4 which were guards, and these are created guards. They're not beasts at all. And they were singing, of course, a new song. And for they are virgins. Now that is not literal. Who are virgins? Virgins are the virgin bride that Jesus expects, and this is the idea that God, and when Jesus returns, expects to find a virgin bride, a pure bride, and not one that is contaminated with false worship. And verse 5. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Now, that word guile here in the King James is changed to lies, for example, in the NIV, but it means more than just lies. If you take this word guile back to the Greek word is doulos from the root delo, and it means a decoy. Now, when you put out a duck decoy, why are you putting it out? You are putting it out to trick some foolish ducks or geese or whatever, turkeys in the case of turkey hunting, tricking them into thinking that it's the real thing and luring them in. 2 Thessalonians, Paul writing in the 2nd chapter of verse 11, in this guile, he said, and let's go there, 2 Thessalonians, verse 2 and verse 11. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, and they should believe a lie. So, for persons who want to be deceived and who do not have enough sense to learn and to study and to be aware of the coming events and how they transpire in their chronology, will be subject to believing a lie. And if we want to believe a lie, Paul says that God will send us a strong delusion. Five. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before God. That's that guile. Those are the ones who were the 144,000, the overcomers. A symbolic number, as I said, 6. And I saw another angel. There will be 6 of these angels in this chapter, in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Now, this is that period of great teaching, and it will be to all nations. It will be to all who have never had a chance and who dwell on the earth. And they will hear the real truth, and the false teaching that has been around the world will be ended, and the teachers will be true. 7. Saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of this judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains. Now, at that point, the judgment, of course, comes at the end of the 1,000-year millennium, the time of teaching that will take place after the Antichrist is revealed, as we learned from Paul. 8. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen. Now, Babylon, that's old sister Babylon, deception. It's gone, and Babylon is rooted in Babel, which means confusion. That great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the fornication there is again, symbolic, pulling those who may have been part of the virgin bride into idolatry, which is in the Bible equated with spiritual adultery. 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture in the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. That was 2 verses I read, 9 and 10, because they were connected. Now, this is after, again, the judgment, and these persons who have taken the mark of the beast in their forehead and in their palm of their hand, not on. You will not get a mark on your hand or something tattooed on your forehead. What's in your forehead? Your forehead contains the part of the brain, the frontal lobe, wherein we store knowledge and memory and accrued wisdom. And what about our hand? We use our hand to work. So this means that this wrath will be poured out upon those who took the marks. They believed in their forehead, and the mark in their hand worked in the kingdom of Satan to push his power and his seeking to get all persons to worship him who worked in that so-called church. Now, the cup of this wrath. I want to point out that this is the cup that Jesus was talking about when he prayed in Gethsemane. He said, Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass. Now, you will hear people say, oh my, Jesus weakened and he prayed that he would not have to be in this awful part of the beatings and the humiliation and his death on the cross. That is not true. Jesus knew from the foundations that he would come as the Messiah. He knew exactly what would happen to him. And God himself has told us, and if you wish to look at Psalm 122, it follows the crucifixion. In fact, Jesus himself quoted that when he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And there are people who will say, oh my goodness, God forsook Jesus. Why, he never did. He is quoting, go to Psalm 122 and read it. The very first verse is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And then the very end of the chapter, Psalm 122, it is finished, is what it means in the Greek. And that's what Jesus said when he gave up the ghost, if you read the gospel accounts of the crucifixion. Now, this is after the judgment, and that's that cup of wrath. And Jesus was praying in Gethsemane, if there's any way around not having to pour out that judgment. However, in the eternity beginning after the great white throne judgment, evil and all badness will cease to exist. And persons who will tell you that, everyone will be saved, well, they're wrong. And there are those who will tell you that, even Satan will be saved, and they're using that verse back a couple of chapters or so when it said Satan was transformed. Well, the actual word means disguise. He's masquerading. He will never be transformed. He's been sentenced, and you will find that out. Now, what happens to these folks who took that mark in their forehead and in their hand and worked and helped along this? Verse 11, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark. Now, I want to point out about the beast and the image. Now, it would be easy to conclude that that's some kind of an idol. The beast, of course, is the one world system, the governmental system. And think about image. You are looking at an image right now. When you turn your television on, it is an image, and I have an idea that that is the kind of image that is being spoken of here in Revelation, certainly unheard of until mid-50s. Here, 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Here they are, and they're going to be living in an eternity and in an earth that has been turned back to its original perfection. Now, think about that smoke of torment. When we read about Satan's punishment, he'll be smoked up from the inside. Think about smoke from a standpoint of the discipline of chemistry. If we burn a piece of paper, we create an ash, and we'll create some water vapor, and then the smoke will ascend. And we know from the study of chemistry that nothing is ever gone. It's in a different form. When someone burns an old rubber tire and it puts up all that horrible blue-black smoke, it goes up into the atmosphere and it is never totally gone, ever. And that is what happens to Satan and his followers. 14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and his hand a sharp sickle. Now, this is the Son of Man. This is the Christ. And what did he have in his hand? He had a sickle. Now, if you don't know, a sickle is a long-handled agricultural tool with a blade on the end, and it is used to harvest grain. It is used to cut down something that you would harvest close to the ground, as cutting down wheat or rye or oats or grain. 16. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Think about the parable of the tares in the Gospels. The final harvest is reaping, and reaping the harvest of the good wheat and burning the tares, are the ones who were pretending to be real wheat but really weren't. 17. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he having a sharp sickle. He also has a sickle, and he will see what he will harvest. Now, 17, 18, and another angel came out from the altar which had power over fire, and cried with a loud voice to him that had a sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Now, who would send a sickle to harvest grapes? Grapes, if you took out to harvest grapes with a sickle, it's going to produce a lot of bursted grapes, and if they're wine grapes, it will be red, will be stained. And there's vine of the earth that is a wine press, and that, of course, is to press the juice from grapes. 19. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And that's the end, of course, there of the judgment. And the bad grapes will go into that winepress, which is the wrath. 20. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles, and by the space of 1,600 furlongs. There was so much that came out of there that it was spread out over 200 miles, and something that is up to the horse's bridle, that's quite deep. Now this is, of course, the end of the judgment when this happens. And I want to look now to the Song of Moses, which is the song that will be sung. If you would turn to Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses that will be sung, the new song, sung by the overcomers. We are told several times in the Bible that this will be sung. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 32, we are going to pick it up in verse 32. For the vine is of the vine of Sodom, and the fields of Gomorrah, their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. These are those grapes. 33. Their wine is the poison of dragons, and the cruel venom of asps. Got two of Satan's names there, dragon and serpent. 34. Is not this laid up to store with me, and sealed up among my treasures? In other words, if you're sealed with the truth. 35. To me belongeth vengeance, that is, God speaking, and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them. Make haste, for the Lord shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, when he seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And this is what will happen. There will be a harvest, and we want to be harvested and found to be true, good grain, and not a tare. And we don't want to be one of these grapes that put forth foulness. Remember that Jesus called himself a vine. I am the vine, he said, and you are the branches. And we are expected to be good branches. Now, if the end time, the one world system, if we think about global pressure that's in existence today, of those four hidden dynasties, it's finances or economy, it's education, it's a political system, and it's religion. And those four hidden dynasties lay the groundwork for that one world system, that political system that will be in existence at the very end time. This video has been an outreach of the Essex United Methodist Church in Essex, Missouri.